I would like to see some funding go to the House of Refuge because the funding that they're looking for looks like it's helping families transition to self-sufficiency. And I would think that as a community, that's what we would want is, because not only is it helping families transition to that self-sufficiency, but as those families transition out of House of Refuge, it also frees up additional space where they can take those families in that are in crisis mode. I don't think 13,000 is too much to ask for, so I would really like to see some additional funding pushed over to House of Refuge. I think they do a tremendous job in our community with families and getting those families. I mean, they've got like a 90% or 98% success rate versus the rapid rehousing programs that HUD pushes out. So why would we not want to help fund those and help those families become self-sufficient again? So I would like to see funding put back in for House of Refuge.
So Michelle and Mr. Brady, I know at the end of last week's presentation, the question was asked, can some of these funding recommendations be allocated to CARE dollars, freeing up additional funding? So House of Refuge was on the initial list. My understanding is we weren't, defunding anyone. We were just looking for ways to use the additional money that could be transferred over from the CARES Act. Am I correct in that assumption?
Yeah, Mayor, Councilor Thomas, what the guidance we took from last week was to identify those specifically related to food security, so that we could easily, recognizing that was a program that was clear in the guidance from the federal dollars, that we could then exchange out some of those dollars, reduce the amount coming from the general fund and replacing it with the Mesa CARES dollars. So that's why we focused just on those 3 programs there, and then we took the savings from that and put it into the Mesa Promise program. We haven't touched any of the other agencies or dollars because they weren't specifically related to the food, and so that's why we really haven't made any changes. Now, to Councilmember Thompson's question about supporting House of Refuge, we actually have right now, and it's either 5 or 6. We have literally we are now staffing up House of Refuge with 5 Parks employees who are working there full time now. And we wrote a check for $200,000 last week to Midwest Food Bank, who then provides the meals to House of Refuge to distribute to their clients. So I think we are in multiple ways. We're in constant conversations now. We're staffing the administrative side, warehousing side, and a lot of the logistics out at House of Refuge. We've become part of their family, and we are embedded with them. So I think well beyond, we have 2, sorry, I overstated, 2 right now at House of Refuge. But we are supporting them well beyond their requests that they made, or even these dollars you see here. It's I think we're trying to do everything we can to support their activities that are specifically related, that are eligible under the Mesa CARES program. So we'll be providing food and staffing for them.
And Chris, on the staffing side, are we hoping to get reimbursed by those dollars from the CARES Act? Is that what we're hoping to do? Because I know there was a question from one of my constituents about utilizing city employees that are paid by tax dollars to work at nonprofits and being paid by tax dollars. And so I told them originally that we're looking to it'll be reimbursable under CARES Act. We're just waiting on that authorization to go through and so forth. Is that still the case?
That is the case, is that we anticipate that we'll get reimbursed. But I guess philosophically, remember, all these are nonprofits that are getting taxpayer dollars. Whether it's a city employee's payroll or whether it's dollars coming out of the general fund, the effect is the same. But we're writing large checks to nonprofits, and we always have. But in this case, yes, we are anticipating that because they have been substantially assigned, I'm not using the right word, redeployed, and are doing something very different or completely different outside of what their original jobs were. The guidance we believe we've received now is that that payroll, and as a matter of fact, we've created an entire new unit organization inside our budget right now that has its own codes for charging activities, and we're moving employees into this new organization for Mesa teams, and they are being charged directly now. We created its own budget. So yeah, not only are they, some employees are keeping track of their time to get reimbursed, but we have in Parks, we are now literally moving individuals out of their current positions and into new positions in this new organization that we've stood up.
Thank you. So maybe just to clarify on Michelle's presentation, the last three screens where we have the human services funding that went through the very detailed process that we approved in last week's council meeting, those recommendations, we already took action and made those awards. So the update today doesn't undo any of those allocations. So all of those allocations in screens 1 and 2 are a done deal. We're just talking about how to, now that we can move some money over to the CARES budget, we have some additional, it's freed up some additional funds that we can allocate,
Yeah.
correct?
Mayor, just correct. I think what we're asking, we didn't take action on the Human Services Fund as a program. We took action on the CDBG, ESG, and home funds, and we pulled this aside. But you're correct. We didn't. The idea was not to change any of the other programming that's gone through the entire process through committee evaluations and reviews, but except for those ones that we identified that we could fund from the Mesa CARES funds, and that's what we have here. And we're just showing you the changes we've made and taking the dollars, using the CARES dollars to cover the cost through December, and then having the general fund pick up the cost or their expenses from January through June 30th. That's what this is showing you.
Thank you. I understood. So today we'll be approving the general fund allocations. Last week we did the federal dollars.
That's correct, Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you. Council, additional questions regarding anything on this agenda item? Yes, Jeremy.
Yeah, I just want to thank staff for putting all this together so quickly. I think it's imperative given the economic state right now. So I just wanted to say thanks to staff and working with all this and putting everything together. Thanks, guys.
Thank you. Yeah, I'll echo that as well. This is even better than we were expecting. So it's good to see. I think we're being smart in the way we're moving things over to the CARES Act, and hopefully that will be a boon to some of our nonprofits. So thank you. So Council, is there a motion to approve these updated fund recommendations? Thank you. Motion made by Mr. Luna, seconded by Mr. Freeman. We'll do a roll call vote. I vote aye. Vice Mayor Freeman.
Aye.
Thank you. Councilmember Whitaker.
Aye.
Thank you. Councilmember Heredia.
Aye.
Thank you. Councilmember Duff.
Aye.
Thank you. Councilmember Luna.
Aye.
Thank you. Councilmember Thompson.
Aye.
Thank you. Item 2B passes unanimously. Next item on our agenda is item 2C. That is to hear a presentation, discuss, and provide direction on an update on the Mesa CARES program, focusing on the Mesa CARES Small Business Assistance and Reemergence Program. Mr. Brady.
Thank you, Mayor. We're still building this plane while we're flying, Mayor. I hope you recognize that. So today we're bringing more parts of this plane that we're trying to get off the ground and fly. And I will tell you that it's a challenge because we're being pushed not only to do things very quickly and change the way we operate internally and pull people off of what they've normally been doing, but we're asked to bring programs and develop programs that is not typically kind of in our wheelhouse as far as programs. So today, though, we feel like it's important, and we think the timing is actually critical with what the governor is working on as far as bringing the economy back in Mesa, sorry, well, I guess the rest of Arizona too. And so we wanted to bring to you today kind of another phase, another program in that Mesa Cares program. And this one, we want to focus on small business. So I will tell you that we wanted to come to council because we kind of really needed to bring kind of some of our thoughts and where we are with this. And this is a big challenge for us. We really need just some good thinking about, are we headed in the right direction? That's the goal we need today. At the same time, we don't want to spend a lot of time, we're trying to avoid it even internally, getting too detail specific and worrying about too many details, because we feel an urgency to get applications out and to begin dispersing funding very quickly. And so we need to kind of balance out, are we headed in the right direction with, if we need to do course corrections, we will, but we want to get out and start promoting these programs, getting applications. So that's where we are today, but we certainly would love your input as you have heard from businesses and the community, and how we can have the most meaningful impact with the dollars we have. So we went out, found the best and the brightest in Jay O'Donnell. So she's leading our small business reemergence program. So we're going to ask her to give that presentation to you today.
Thank you, Chris. Good morning, Mayor and Council. It's so nice to be here. It's actually really nice to be here out of my house, and nice to see colleagues in person. So thank you for this opportunity to present to you today. As Chris mentioned, I'm Jay O'Donnell. I'm the Assistant Economic Development Director for the City of Mesa. And I wanted to, first of all, just provide an update on the City of Mesa's response to COVID-19, and then to introduce to you the Mesa Cares Small Business Reemergence Program. It seems a lot longer than 6 weeks ago, but it was just over 6 weeks ago when companies started to be affected, and then obviously to close due to executive order, when our economic development staff really pivoted to focus the bulk of our time on business outreach. We quickly launched a needs assessment of the business community. We interviewed businesses and encouraged Mesa companies to complete our business impact survey. And then we also reviewed other data resources to determine and gauge need, not only immediate, but what might be the need longer term. I was also really pleased that our staff mobilized very quickly and developed a one-stop business and workforce website portal that provides valuable information, resources, and connectivity targeting businesses, employees, and those recently unemployed to obviously provide networking opportunities for those groups. In terms of the CARES Act, we knew that we were going to be receiving municipal funds, a lump sum to help in various ways. So while we were waiting for those official guidelines, and obviously before we knew what the formal parameters were, we have been planning and preparing and developing a program for relief specifically for businesses in Mesa. And there has been literally a team of people working on this. So now the Department of Treasury guidelines have been released. The CARES Act funds may only be used to cover costs that are necessary expenditures incurred due to the public health emergency between March 1st and December 30th of this year. More specifically, the CARES Act funding is for expenses associated with the provision of economic support and expenditures related to grants to support and reimburse the costs of business interruption caused by the required closures. So I wanted everybody to have a clear understanding of what those guidelines are. Also wanted to share our business impact survey results with you. The survey actually closes today, so if any business owners are listening that have not filled out our survey, we ask that they do so. To date, we've had 450 responses. 82% of those were Mesa businesses, and 50% of those had less than 4 employees. So we have very small businesses in Mesa, and we want to be able to service that population. 33% of them had 5 to 24 employees. The years at the Mesa location, I was really pleased to see that many of them have been in business for 1 to 5 years, 30%, nearly 30% for 6 to 15 years, and then just over a quarter at the Mesa location for 16 plus years. 60% of those businesses lease their facility and 40% own. When asked, how did COVID-19 affect your business, 54% of respondents said they were significantly affected. 26% said minimal impact, and 16% reported they're on the verge of losing their business. And the bulk of these responses to our survey happened probably 2 weeks ago or more. I would wager that that number would be higher today. As you might imagine, the greatest need is immediate financial relief in the form of rent relief or deferral, utility relief, cash grants, short-term loans. There was also a lot of comments about how SBA could improve their process and make it a little more accessible or clearer. The businesses who are open or who want to reopen need access to personal protective equipment and cleaning supplies. And then the businesses really need their customers to return. And the biggest stress point is the unknown of when they will be able to open or operate more fully, which hopefully some of that was clarified by the governor yesterday during his press conference. Many of the respondents we've found, and with the interviews that we've been doing with businesses, it's clear that some of our companies do not have a website presence. So it's very difficult for them to market during this time period, and many of them cannot accept online payment. So operating in this environment is literally impossible for many of them. So during the last month, there has been a team of people at the city processing all of this data, working hard to try and stand up a meaningful program that has multiple lines of service, including financial assistance, technical assistance, and marketing support. So saving businesses in Mesa has been our #1 priority since March. I wanted to just cover briefly what we're going to talk about today. I'll give you an idea of Mesa's business landscape, the goals of the program, the Small Business Reemergence Program, the process that we're using for determining a policy for the awards, and then eligibility recommendations. And obviously, the program is in draft form, as Mr. Brady mentioned, so we'll be looking to you for guidance and direction and feedback. I think the majority of people understand that small businesses are the backbone of Mesa's economy. While the city of Mesa does not have a business registry list, our analysts have used multiple sources of data to estimate our total business count to be 12,000. Of those, the number of businesses in Mesa with less than 100 employees is 11,834. And if you drop the parameter down to under 50 employees, it's 11,500 businesses. So we do have a lot of businesses that are considered very small. We know that the businesses hit the hardest by this pandemic are retail, restaurants, and hospitality. Mesa has 2,200 restaurants and bars. We have 66 hotel properties representing 5,500 plus hotel rooms. The restaurant payroll in the state, I heard the stat yesterday, I believe, has gone from $14 million a day paying out to $3 million a day in payroll. The hotel business in Mesa has also been decimated. Obviously, there is great need in Mesa, but there's also limited funding. So with that in mind, we focused on some key goals going forward. The goals of the Mesa Cares program are to help as many Mesa-based businesses as possible and still provide meaningful assistance. We want to prioritize assistance for businesses who did not receive any CARES Act funding, and for businesses who are mandated to close or forced to significantly modify their operations due to executive order. We also want to distribute the funds directly to businesses quickly, efficiently, and obviously within the guidelines of the CARES Act. We also think it's important to provide technical assistance to businesses for marketing, safety and health training, workforce development, website development, disaster preparedness, and even facility redesign and modification, because we know that companies are going to need some help fine-tuning how they do business and manage flow of people. And the city could work with vendors, academic partners, and other consultants to offer these services. So our policy considerations and to design the program, our recommendations are, again, to focus on those businesses who did not receive CARES Act funding, making sure the businesses have a physical commercial address in Mesa. We do feel strongly that this needs to be a grant program so that we can get the awards out quickly and efficiently. And then we also anticipate that the awards will be based on the demand for the program and the amount of funding available, both of which are unsure at this time. We also feel it's important to focus on the industries hit the hardest or those that have significantly been impacted by COVID-19. So armed with that framework, the following is our proposal for Mesa's Small Business Reemergence Program. The Reemergence Program is a relief and recovery program, and based on the guidelines, it is to cover or reimburse expenses during business interruption. So the intent is to help businesses planning to reopen or to get back to full operation or as close to full operation as possible with the social distancing guidelines and other safety and health concerns. So the grant is for eligible businesses to cover monthly essential operating expenses up to 90 days, beginning on March 1st, so through the end of May, and it will cover utilities and rent or mortgage payments. So supporting documentation will be required, and awards will most likely be capped at a few different tiers. We purposely avoided the payroll expenses just because we thought it might be more difficult to verify that in a quick manner, and a lot of businesses have obviously changed their payroll right now. So that's one of the reasons we left that piece out. We also felt that, and I don't have it in here, but it would be wise to make sure that the business has been in business for 12 months or longer. That's also a point we can discuss. So the process for the application is fairly simple. We will make it available online and will be open for 2 weeks. The Mesa Cares call center staff will be available to answer questions and also help complete applications over the phone for those businesses who may not be able to fill it out online. Verification documents will need to be uploaded with the online application, including lease agreements, mortgage invoices, and utility bills. After the application deadline, there will be an evaluation period to determine how many applications may be funded and at what level. And the goal is to make the awards and deploy grants no later than July 1st. Any questions, comments, or discussion?
Thank you very much. I'm sure I see everyone's hands in the air. So that I'm going to start with Mr. Luna.
Hey, Jay, thank you so much for that presentation. What about minority-owned businesses? We know that there are many Latino businesses, as well as our Asian district, women-owned businesses that have suffered through this pandemic. Were you able to ascertain through your survey how many of those businesses were affected throughout the city of Mesa?
Mayor and Councilmember Luna, we do know that those businesses have been greatly affected. We did not ask specifically in the survey to call out whether or not they were a minority-owned business, but we have heard directly from those businesses, as well as from the Hispanic Chamber of Commerce, the Asian Chamber of Commerce. So we know those businesses are hurting. That's one of the things that I think is appealing to this program. It's really geared toward those small businesses. We've not set aside funding for any minority groups, but I can tell you that those businesses who do not have a relationship with or a good relationship with a lending agency, who didn't have access to the SBA CARES Act, this is really tailored to, or the CARES Act, this is really tailored to those companies.
Okay, so, and you mentioned that if they applied for an SBA loan, and they receive funding from them, they wouldn't be able to access the funding that the city of Mesa currently has.
At this point, the way it's structured, we thought we should prioritize those businesses who do not receive funding. It's not
Right.
to say that they couldn't, depending on their, I guess, level of funding from the SBA, that they couldn't receive additional funding from this program if that's the way we choose to structure it.
And how do you plan to get the information out to, and of course, I'm focused on the Latino-based businesses. How are you going to do outreach to them and let them know that this funding is going to be available? And then when do you plan to actually launch the program?
So we have met with our team, and IT has been working around the clock. We really, Mayor and Council, we really think that it's important to get this online as quickly as possible. We feel that we could launch the program on May 11th, which is a Monday. However, that gives us then just a week to really market and really target those businesses who we feel strongly should be applying for this program. We can also move that time back if you would like us to take a little bit longer to market the program, but we know there's some urgency there. We will be equipped with Spanish speakers in the care center, and I also think that it is probably feasible that we can make the application available in Spanish as well.
Okay.
And then we also have worked with the Asian Chamber of Commerce to see if they would be available to help with some translation services to walk businesses through the application.
And Councilman Wright, we talked about having the application open for 2 weeks. We will take the week before that to promote it, but we'll keep promoting it through even time the application is out there. So in theory, we will have promoting it for at least 2 weeks, 2.5 weeks before we'll close the deadline. So we want to do everything, and we'll work with all the chambers, as I think Jay just mentioned, whether it's the Asian Chamber, the Hispanic Chamber, the Mesa Chamber, any of our groups to get the word out to assist us in trying to reach out to all of the businesses that we have in Mesa.
And so for those businesses that may not be technology savvy, it's a small businesses, will you accept a paper application, or are they going to require to submit the application online only?
Mayor and Councilmember Luna, there has been discussions about how to handle paper applications, mainly because of safety and health concerns. So there will be an option or a way to submit that. We had talked about having the Mesa Cares call center do the intake and do the data entry for the applicant. And then those invoices that need to be submitted as verification documents could be, you could take a picture of it with your phone and then email it to the call center representative.
Okay, great. Now, next week on Thursday, Councilmember Heredia and I will be hosting a small business symposium via Facebook Live in Espanol. So we would be more than happy to begin to get the word out.
That'd be awesome.
That this is available. So we're looking forward to that. I think it's timely. We are going to do it next Thursday so that we can certainly let our Spanish-speaking community know that this is available. We want to make sure that all minority communities are aware of what's going on so that they can take advantage of these dollars that they may qualify for. So thank you, Jay. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Luna. I know we had other hands. I believe Mr. Freeman, you were one of them.
Yes, thanks, Mayor. How I guess how many dollars are being allocated towards this? Jay, I'm just thinking about,
I haven't
do we have any idea?
told her yet. So we, I think from a large perspective of the 90 million right now, we've kind of set aside about 20% of that for this program. But frankly, what we want to see is the part of getting the applications out and getting the response back, that we can get a sense of the demand, the needs that are out there. So again, we're just trying to find all the buckets that we have identified through the needs assessment and allocating dollars to each one of those. And it's about 20% for each one of them. And so that's where we're at today. And then I think what will happen is as we get the applications in and we can look at that and come back to council and tell you what the demand looks like. I think that's why we're trying to be very careful to manage expectations, but at the same time make it fit inside of a budget. And so that'll probably determine, as Jay was saying, if we fix an amount for the whole program, then when we come back and look at the demand, we'll create tiers of flat fees probably for different groupings that may not cover all of their costs, but should give them a substantial, meaningful financial boost for the next, well, for the 3 months that for the 90 days that we talked about.
So Chris, along with that, my thought was, do you think 2 weeks is enough for the application process? Or are you going to schedule a second round to allow, some restaurants, to Mr. Luna's comment is some restaurants may not be able to, the word of mouth travels and they may want to do it paper or cannot, or
Right.
have no electronic means. So I just wondering if you're going to have a second round of application or is it?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. I think in my mind is let's try to give the best effort we can with this first round and commit to that. And then when we get the applications in, let's see how many we get, see what the demand is, and then we can come back and we'll have a better sense too of how the other dollars are being spent. But if we decide that the first round we have additional capacity, I have no problem coming back to council and saying, hey, let's restart this. I think where we are right now is in this mode of trying to be comprehensive, but also timely in getting dollars out. We were actually kind of debated as 2 weeks too long, because for every week we wait to get the applications and review the applications and then verify information and then get a check out, it's another day, another week that a business is without any kind of support. And so we're trying to balance all that out. So I think the timeline we've recommended gives us a first round and a view. And if we're oversubscribed, then we'll know that'll be the conclusion of that program. If it's not, and we see capacity from other programs that maybe don't need as much of the funding, we could come back for a second round, absolutely. And if we feel like we didn't pick up all the businesses. So I think I more want to emphasize, let's try to get as many businesses as we can in this first round, do that evaluation, get those dollars out as quickly as we can. And then if there's an opportunity to do another round before the end of the year and there's funding available, we do not want to have funding sitting around. We want to get it out the door, so.
I guess that's where, just my final comment, of repurposing employees. I mean, it sounds like there's going to be a lot of people involved in this process. I mean, you're just not going to have 15 or 20, I imagine. It's going to take a lot of people and to get this job done. So thank you. That's your job. I'm going to sign off on that.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Heredia.
Yeah, no, my question kind of goes with what Councilmember Luna mentioned. Thanks, Jay, for the information. Just curious to see, I know you didn't collect detailed information on the survey, but were these mostly restaurants, or what was a mix of the types of businesses? I might have missed that for your comments.
Mayor and Councilmember Heredia, there were a mix of industries, and we had a drop down that they could basically choose from. So we did have some restaurants, construction, developers, retailers, professional services, personal services. It really was a fairly broad group, which is nice to see that there's a demand across all industries. But I do feel that there will be a strong demand for this particular program from restaurants.
And then my other point was, again, to Councilmember Luna's comments were, especially within the minority small businesses and, looking at my district, the Asian district, that we worked so hard to ensure we got it going. And in addition to, the Spanish speaking owners of small businesses, is we might have to, have some keep on the proactive outreach efforts to let them know and talk through the process of how they can apply. So just making sure that we're looking at proactive measures along the way to keep on spreading the word and facilitating the process for the application.
Mayor and Councilmember Heredia, we will definitely do that. I think the good news is that through the process of branding the Asian district, we have established a strong network of contacts and a good partnership with the stakeholders in that particular district. And then with the other minority groups, we have also been proactive in reaching out to our other city departments who have relationships and leveraging those. So neighborhood services, police, fire, and really trying to utilize those networks to communicate with a variety of different groups.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Thompson.
Yeah, and to that point, I just want to make sure that the focus stays on helping all small businesses and not providing, a racial preference one way or the other, that we're really focused on helping all small businesses reemerge from this travesty and get our economy functioning again in Mesa.
Thank you. Jen.
Yes, I have quite a few comments, and I just wanted to bring to attention that according to the Center for Responsible Lending, roughly 95% of Black-owned businesses, 91% of Latino-owned businesses, and 91% of Native Hawaiian or Pacific Islander-owned businesses, 75% of Asian-owned businesses stand no chance of getting a PPP loan through the mainstream bank or credit union. Those relationships of banks and credit unions are really geared toward the more sophisticated businesses. They have more of an opportunity. So I would like to suggest a weight on ethnicity and race and gender. I would like it on the application in order for us to better support those micro businesses, those businesses under 5 employees, under 25 employees, because those small business, I think that's where we as a city can have the most impact. I don't think through the federal programs and grants, it's much more difficult and much further out of reach for those businesses. One of the concern is the accountability of the businesses once they get the money. How do we make sure that they use those monies to get back in business and just don't close up shop and run? So I think we need to put in some terms and conditions about that. Also, the speed in which we get the money to the businesses is critical. I know we put a lot of work into it and taking these applications in 2 weeks, but our goal of July 1st is way too slow in dispersing the monies. It's way too late to save these businesses that are in crisis right now. Therefore, I would like to suggest that we use a CDFI like LISC to disperse the monies. They are set up, have everything in place. They're already processing grants and assistance for cities across the nation. They're already set up to be able to take this in. They have the network and the databases in order to do it, and they are processing loans and getting them back in loans and grants back into the hands of businesses within 1 week. Their turnaround time is in 1 week. In addition to after we fund, we need to do those hand-holding services of not only filling out the application, but the ongoing assistance of the marketing and the counseling and the advertising, what they can do to make their business more resilient. Someone like LISC and our other maybe CDCs have some of those opportunities to guide business and be ongoing after we give the money out. Then my other question is on the utilities. Are we doing more outside of the business assistance for businesses on utilities? There was a comment earlier in another session that we talked about coordination with SRP and APS and putting together a program. I don't know if that assistance is going to be wrapped into what we're doing in this program, or that's going to be something else in the CARES program. Let's see, I have notes all over my piece of paper I've been making as we, I'll leave it at that and have those conversations, and I might have a couple of other comments. But, you know, of all the things we do, great things we do as a city, we must be remembered and how we helped our community in this time of crisis. So it's critical that we get it right and do it to the best of our ability in order to make a difference and save our city and save our businesses and families. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Duff.
So
I have a
can I just make a comment on that? Because I think
yes.
there were some suggestions there which would dramatically change the course that we're going right now. We are really trying to simplify this process, and we've been very careful to keep it very simple as far as the application process, how we identify any business in Mesa to receive funding, so that we don't have to spend a lot of time vetting through the process and scoring and spending a lot of time doing that. I understand there's times when that is important for certain purposes. Again, with our urgency of getting dollars out and trying to treat everyone being impacted the same, we've not made that distinction. Certainly in times when we have dollars to make those kind of discretions, we have. And frankly, we think as a city, we're better positioned to push these dollars out because they're in our bank account, and we have lots of staff that are now available to assist us in standing up these programs. We've invested tremendous amount of resources to get the application ready, to do the marketing. So we feel like we're in the position on accountability side to the federal government, how these dollars are spent, as opposed to using third parties or nonprofits, which then require us to open up a process to negotiate and to negotiate agreements and then have monitoring of the dollars. I think the Treasury and the discussions we've had, this is intended for cities to disperse dollars. And so that's kind of where we've been. That's the path we've been running down for some time, where if we need a reverse course, that may take us some time. But right now we think that the simplification of treating all businesses in Mesa, really more the distinction will be by size and their expenses. But we have every intention of reaching down to the smallest business as we can. And so the outreach will be very important. But that's the path we're headed on right now. Thank you.
And Mayor, members of council, if I could just add one more thing on the speed of distribution. I do appreciate that there are a number of agencies who could help us distribute this funding. One of the pieces that we've been fairly deliberate about is wanting to assist the businesses that are coming to the city, and this is a way for us to intake the client and make sure then that we're able to service them, if not with the financial assistance, through technical assistance, through other resources, workforce development programs, through our partnerships with academic institutions. So that is in our wheelhouse. That is what we do already. And so we want to make sure that we're providing that service in a very streamlined approach and make it a one-stop contact basically to help that client and that Mesa company as quickly as possible.
Thank you. Jen?
I'd like to suggest at least having the conversation with LISC. They are doing it for cities across the nation, and so they do understand the requirements for federal funding. At least have that. Are we working with any partners in order to take care of this program? Are we doing everything internally? And did you say, is anything available for nonprofits?
So because we have a tremendous amount of overhead that is fairly underutilized right now, that's what we've activated that. And so we're keeping the cost very nominal. We don't have to pay anybody else for their overhead to administer this program because it's already available within the city. And so that's why we really aren't having those conversations. And we can have the conversations, but again, the speed of delivery and being able to, I guess, manage the process from the outreach to the review of the applications, which we've already created, to cutting the checks from our account, we believe gives us the total accountability that we're going to need to report back to Treasury. Treasury is not going to worry about how a third party spent the money. They're going to ask us how we monitored it. And again, setting up monitoring agreements and with this volume of dollars and the number of applications is not something that we take lightly, and it could be a significant burden on the city in the future. But we can ask. But again, we feel pretty comfortable that we're in a position, we've stood up these programs and we've got people in place that we can, and lots of people. I mean, not just 4 or 5, but we've got dozens of people that are ready to make this happen. As far as whether nonprofits will be available for this, again, if they meet the criteria of being impacted by COVID and they can show that they meet the same criteria of rent and utilities, then I don't know why they wouldn't be eligible.
Mayor, may I make another comment?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. I would like to at least say, please call LISC or whatever and talk to them about what they have and what their resources are, because the effectiveness is critical. How fast we get it out, but the effectiveness and what it does. We are not an institution that deals with assisting small businesses, and I appreciate that we're trying to do this as quickly and expeditiously as we can within the city. But I think we owe it to our businesses to have a sophisticated way in which it's really, truly affecting them. Also, working with LISC or another CDFI, they can coordinate other grant opportunities, which brings me to also, I forgot what I was going to say on that. Is that, if a business applies and they have outstanding applications, let's say for the PPP program or stuff like that, and how do we get that coordination to know that they're receiving the money from the federal dollars and then they're getting it? There's a coordination point of knowing if we're really funding businesses that aren't getting other assistance. And again, the point of the small micro businesses, they have little to no chance to even get any federal funding from the Fed. So as much as we can make a small micro minority weighted businesses, the more effective we're going to be for our community. There's other opportunities in for the larger businesses. And July 1st, is there anything we can do about that? July 1st is how many more months of rents that are missed? Businesses will be gone by then.
Mayor and Councilmember Duff, if I may, I do believe that we can get the funds deployed much quicker than that. As far as the question about speed, if we open the applications on May 11th and they're open for 2 weeks, that's May 25th, we will need a review period in that time to go through the applications and figure out what sort of subscription or demand we have. But I anticipate that would be about another week. So by early June, if not the first week in June, we could deploy awards at that point. In terms of coordinating there are two categories of applicants in my mind. There are those businesses who did not apply for SBA funding, so that's not an issue for checking. And then there's another category of businesses who applied and are still waiting. So by the time the end of May comes around and we've accepted their application and have said, this is how much of an award you're receiving, there will need to be a letter that goes out. It's basically a reiteration of the agreement and their agreement to pledge that they are reopening or they're opening in a fuller capacity and they're using this money for what they applied for, rent and utilities. And then at that point, I do think that they will know if they've received PPP or EIDL or the other federal programming funds that might be available. I hope that answered your question.
Yeah, yes, it did. Are we providing any other support as far as you had in your presentation, the technical side of marketing and resiliency and planning, financials, or are there any other assistance or wraparound services that we're providing in order to help these businesses?
Mayor and Councilmember Duff, yes, a short answer. And on the technical assistance side, we're already providing counseling services in the Office of Economic Development to companies to help them find the right resources based on their needs. What we'd like to do as a second pillar of this program overall is to contract with consultants or academic institutions or other vendors to provide technical assistance to companies who need it, where they would get a certain amount of hours per se to build a website or to develop a marketing plan or to have a consultant come in and redesign the interior of their store so there's more space for clients to walk through the store. There's more space for a restaurant, so they're practicing the guidelines that are in place for dine-in restaurants, those kinds of things. And I'm sure there are a number of services that we haven't even thought of. There are simple things that we could cover to help businesses, like just a QuickBooks class or other webinars about how you train your staff now on health and safety practices to make sure they're ready to come back into the workplace in a safe way.
Great. I'd like to suggest that we use some partner organizations to reach the businesses so they know there's assistance available through the city. I'm afraid that a lot of our small businesses that are on the brink of going out of business have no idea that the city even has funding available and how to go about that. And some of these partners who are in the community are the ones who can bring it forward and let them know it's available and also help them fill out the application and get the documents in order for them to apply for funding. And then the other thing, going back, and I might have missed it in the answers, are we doing anything for utilities outside of this program for businesses? Sorry if I missed that previously.
I'm sorry, what's the question again?
Are we doing anything for utility assistance for businesses outside of this application process? Are we doing something independent in another bucket of our CARES program?
No, this program is intended to be that program to provide assistance to businesses on your utilities.
Is there anything we can do in the meantime between now and when we get the disbursements out to defer or have some way to have these businesses hang on so they don't have to make decisions on utilities or buying groceries for their family?
Well, as you recall, we've already made the decision. We're not cutting off anybody's utilities at this point. So whether you're a household or any account with the city, there's no shut off right now on delinquent accounts.
So they're not accumulating any late fees? It's okay to defer payments?
We would, yeah, I mean, that's there's no penalties. There's the utilization is obviously accumulating, yes. And we're encouraging them to pay and work out payment plans, but we're not doing anything to terminate service at all.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Thompson?
Mayor, I wanted to go back to something that Jen said earlier about bringing in outside organizations to kind of help with small businesses. And she talked specifically about LIST, but my question really to Jay is economic development situated to be able to help the small businesses and the micro businesses, or should we be bringing someone in from the outside to help navigate the small business world?
Mayor and Councilmember Thompson, thank you for that question. I would say that we welcome partnerships, and we utilize partnerships already with agencies, with the Mesa Chamber of Commerce, with SCORE. We have pivoted certainly our staff and a few of our key staff to really focus primarily on small businesses and micro businesses. Before COVID-19, we regularly provided technical assistance to small businesses and micro businesses. We actually have a small business website on selectmesa.com. So there's a litany of services and resources that you can find there. We published a business resource guide that is free and downloadable. We also have a number of other services free of charge to business. There's Size Up Mesa that's geared directly to small businesses who are trying to evaluate their position in the marketplace and their competitiveness. We have Mesa Site Select, and Aerial Mesa for small businesses as well. So there are a number of services that we do provide to small businesses. I will tell you, this is unprecedented in terms of the number of calls and the number of companies who need assistance now. So we are relying much more heavily on our partners, and we're also able then to do a warm handoff if at all possible. And I think that in terms of the service delivery for these technical assistance programs, while we have